All right, so hello, welcome everybody. We're just saying we should have checked day map, and this is a, fluid document about what we're planning to do this year. You should be pals with the SACE website. You should also have a look at, and I've sort of accidentally hidden stuff. So on Teams, because I think from hearing from students, this is a better way that you think that everything is just stored there together, and I agree. I mean, when I put stuff up on Daymap, hopefully you're into the habit of downloading it and you pop it into a folder straight away. But on Teams, that's my home group, so let's go back to Teams, and look, we're doing so many different ways of storing things. I'm losing the plot a little bit, so if there's something that you want and I haven't put it there, can you please let me know? Because odds are that I probably would have forgotten. No worries, Hades. Oh. I understand jumpers today. All right, so with specialist, in the general, and if you go to files, you might think there's not much there, because I don't know what I did. I clicked on something, and if you go documents, oh, so I will, when I have a moment to breathe, I will put that into and stop that and just go, yes, it'll all be in general, but I don't even know what I did. And I can't just drag it. I have to just redo it. And even when I had the ones in general, I couldn't even delete those. So anyway, I deleted everything inside and it still didn't, but I'll try it again. But anyway, I'll now keep these and I'll try and delete. So for now, if you really wanted to, you can have a look. There's not a whole heap in there. In the past exams, this is stuff that you can get off Daymap, off the SACE online stuff. I will be in the process of getting, and you can't see this at home, people, but you will, it's probably by the end of term 2, you get these revision guides. And I know that for other subjects, you get them a little bit earlier because you go sort of through. These are somewhat useless until the end, because with a lot of the topics here, it's embedded one after the other. And because it's only a 2-hour exam that you have now, you've sort of got a question, an exam question, where it's got a little bit of each topic. So not overly helpful for test revision. The bits that are helpful I'll photocopy and give to you. But you're probably better off having a look at some of the previous tests and stuff. So if we've got functions, you've got a couple of tests that you can go back maybe and have a look at. Yeah, okay. So just keep that in mind. So don't get panicky about not having your revision guide. This is what you really need in term 3. And once we finish the course and you just go your hardest. It's got old exams in here, and not that many old exams, because last year was the first year that it was a 2-hour paper. So yeah, but there's still some good handy stuff. Any questions so far? Got the roving mic, I can come to you. No? All right, so mask up, yep. With your textbook, we should have the one that I gave you from last year. Oh, I just said that on video. Oops. I didn't give it to you. I think you have a copy somehow, but you should be getting the Snowflake, because we've all paid for the copies. They'll be coming out. You'll get an email on your Learn link, and that just means that you can see the up-to-date versions and all that sort of stuff. Okay? It's not going to be the only resource that we use. There'll be a couple of other things that are tossed in and give you some more questions just to have a look at. But that's the way cookie crumble. Now, I did but on Daymap today, it was having a look at expanding brackets. It's not actually part of the course, but it helps with certain things. And yes, it's in your book. And speaking of what is part of the course, I do have to go back to Teams. I will actually print out, maybe. This one here is your subject outline. and it's got everything that we are actually meant to cover. Now, what I've tried to do is pop that into the program, and oh goodness, how do I open all these things? No, go back, don't want you. Where's my other one? Did I download it? No. Oh, here. So I've sort of summarized some of the outline and popped it in here, but I will give you a bit of a try and get a hard copy, so you can look at it and put it in your folder and actually suss, because it's nice to have that hard copy to see what SACE are actually sending out to you. But if you really want to suss it, if you click this thing, this has got all the info that I have a look at that you should be aware of. And again, this is on the website. So I'm just about to scroll, but I'm pausing the video because you don't want to see me scrolling. So I just scrolled down a little bit. You can see we're on page whatever. This is what SACE have written. The stuff on the left-hand side is really the things that can be assessed. That means they can be in your tests or should be in your tests. We can't cover every single thing, and it's the same with the exam. The stuff on the right-hand side is just some, as you can read, some considerations, some suggestions, some of the levels that you are doing. So when we're looking at some of the function stuff later on, you know, you can suss that some of it is, they're saying you can't have more than power of 2 to certain things. So you should keep your eye on that. I certainly do. It's good for you to be aware. And on that, there are, was it 6 topics? And because we are and we are having 6 tests. Basically, it's a test per topic, except for this very first one. It's on functions and graph, but we're sneaking in the polynomials bit. According to this outline, the polynomials is actually in complex numbers. But we're just pulling that out and sticking it into, because I think it just fits better with all the function work. So, as I said, I will get you a hard copy of that. I put it in a little booklet and it's cute to keep. Right, so with our synthetic multiplication, can I just see a show of hands? And this is not a bad thing if you haven't done it, I don't care. Who has done this already? Right, so if you haven't done it, you're not missing out on anything, and in about, I don't know, a few minutes, I will do it. We can do the next bit. It's not a drama. How many people did exercise 2B? Now, why you get now? So you get too far ahead. It means you're going to be twiddling your thumbs on some things. But anyway, that's okay. 2B is very much revision also. So find the zeros of. How do we do that? Shall I roam the mic? Right. Well, absolutely. You've got calculator. That's your first option. What else? Yes, Dan? He said factorizing. So you check factorizing. Absolutely. If you sort of couldn't see, that would be my first protocol. So 1, always check, is there a common factor? And then I'd see very quickly, 325. I'd maybe spend 5 seconds fiddling, and then, yep, I'd go to my calculator if I've got it. Remember, with this, I said remember when I haven't actually said it to you at all, we are going to have one test where no calculator, no notes. And strongly think that that's probably going to be induction. Okay, so but just in case one of these did come up, there's no non-calculator section in the exam, right? But just in case, if you couldn't use your calculator and go there and check, I've got yucky solutions, what would you do? Quad formula, correct. No way would I try to do completing the square. So all of this stuff, you know, out of question 1, which one do you think sometimes stumps people? It is. It's D. Yes, because we forget that most basic of things, pull out a common factor. I mean, seriously, pull out the common factor. So a lot of these, as you can see up here, we are just using your quad formula, reminding yourself that, yes, you can have imaginary solutions. And if your calculator says error, when you put that in, what's the problem? Right, you haven't changed it into your complex mode. So just make sure that we're up with that. But very good, very good, very good. So 2A and 2B are really revision. Who can I ask? I volunteer from the back half. if I'm looking at 2f, what are you thinking of there? Let me pop that on. No whispers, no whispers. I'm looking at 2f. I didn't highlight 2f. Ooh, it's loud. So, who would like to volunteer from... Ooh, it cuts it right in between Kelly and Finn on the back. Anybody from there? Come on, Mac Attack. What would we do with F? Everything on one side, you champion. Who's been, this is my home group, been fiddling with my board. That's too bold.
You split it because it's z to the power of 4, z to the power of 2, and then z to the power of 0. It can be split into one group, z to the power of 2. With
Champion. He's looking at it as if it was, yeah, z to the 2, as if it was a z squared and 3z. I hope it doesn't sound like I'm running on the video. I am a bit unfit. But yeah, imagine if you just had z squared take 3z take 10. You'd factorize that normally. What two numbers times together give you 10? Have a difference of 3. I say this to you. Right, 5 and 2. So take plus, which means here we do exactly the same thing, but it's now z squared. Take 5, z squared plus 2. And if you're wondering why I do my z's, you know, can you see? Sloppy? But I can still tell that that's a z because there's a line through it. Better 2. That's a better 2 over there. On that note, it is this year that your tests all go off, well, a selection, go off for moderation. I scan them, right? I scan them, send them off, and your exam at the end of the year is not marked by me, right? It's marked by the SACE board, where some teacher who's volunteered to get pittance for marking them gets a stack of 100, and then when they've done that, they get a stack of another 100. So if late at night they have to squint to read really, really tiny, I'm at Ethan here, really tiny writing, or it's too messy and they can't follow it, or it's going across the page instead of down the page, you might lose marks and you won't even know about it because you don't get your exams back. Okay? So please start from day one being neat, organised, putting down as much thinking as possible without overdoing it. Okay? In here, so girls, I've put some files in Teams, but I sort of accidentally hid them, as I told you, Aman, accidentally hid them. So when you go to the general, and it should be all here in programs, hit documents, and I will eventually move them, but I don't even know how I got there. I clicked something twice, I don't know, but there's stuff there. Programs, I think it might be in, was it test advice? In your own time, you might want to go back and read that. This is what the examiners from last year sent out and said, having a look at all the moderation material and the tests, this is some of the feedback that they were giving. So this is what they liked up here, the successful responses, and those students who weren't that successful with some of this. So it's worth it just a little bit of a read and go, ooh, good for me, I'm doing everything that they were happy with, or whoops, I'm in there. So often did not attempt to answer questions, particularly more complex style, so always make a go of it, right? They need to see the flow of your working. So anyway, that's something that you can hopefully have a squiz at. So back to, do we leave it? No, we keep going because they want you to solve it. I didn't even read the question. Did they ask you to fully factorize? Oh, just find the root. So technically you could have whacked this in your calculator, but from memory, there's probably one. Aha! Find the linear factors. So let's imagine we're doing this for one. So you'll go and do question 3 if you haven't in a minute. You don't have to do question 2 because I think that's just, redundant. But if this question had said, find the linear factors, and you had just gone, oh, z equals, then you're wrong. So you must put this little thing in here. How do we factorize? What is that? Difference of 2 squares. Come on, kids. So, yeah, z take root 5, z plus root 5. And I love it. When we see the plus there, yes, you're thinking of your imaginaries. Again, girls, we just said if you're getting errors on your calculator, that's because you're not in the complex mode. Should still be in there from last year. And so on. So z, for the next question, as linear factors, we're done. If it said linear factors and hence state the zeros, then make sure, yes, you put the. So don't predict what the question is. Please make sure you read the question. And can you hear me, by the way, because I don't. Please make sure that you read the question and that you answer what the question is actually asking you. All right? Because sometimes it's like, oh, yeah, we've done a question like this, and you don't need, I just did it then. I didn't even read the starting point, so do make sure you read the beginning. I wouldn't worry too much. Question 4 was a bit stupid. They're just making sure that you realise that, so you can have a look. Sorry, sometimes you haven't even read it, and I'm just going bang. The graph of the polynomial p of x has 3 x-intercepts. State the values of p of. Well, that's just making sure you remember that when it's an intercept, if you sub it back into the equation, what should it equal? 0, right? So p of that should equal 0, equals 0, equals 0. And why can't this one be a factor? Because p of a is not one of the x-intercepts, right? If p of a, if x take a equals 0, that would mean a was a 0, and I hate this question because I have to put my glasses on. What's that? Is it A and an alpha? Come on! Use a different, I know, are you thinking they were the same thing? Correct, me too. And imagine you're writing, Ethan, it would probably look like they're the same thing. Oh no, it wouldn't, it'd just be dot, dot. Look at that, zinger to Ethan, first lesson of the day, of the year. So, does that make sense to people? If we were doing that as a diagram, if we said, okay, we've got -3, we've got 2, and we've got 5 as zeros, whether it be a cubic, a quarter, I'm going to draw something bizarre. So let's say here we've got -3, here we've got 2, here we've got 5. It could be whatever is going on up here. It goes here, woo, right? And so from this, it has to be that p of -3 equals 0. It has to be p of 2 equals 0. That also means, I better write the whole thing. It also means that x plus 3 is a factor. It also means that x take 2 is a factor, etc., etc. And so all this question is saying is it can't have a factor of x take a because they haven't told you that a is as an x-intercept, a 0 or whatever. So in the past, a lot of students have got worried about this question when it was really nothing to be concerned about. It was just worded poorly, and I would say their variables were chosen poorly. Does that make sense? So on that, I'll reiterate again. In a moment, we're about to just dive into something, well, I want to go into the equating coefficients. 2a and 2b is very much revision. And so in your copious amounts of study time, you are more than happy, or I'm more than happy for you to go through and just refresh your memory on 2a and 2b. And then there will be lots of time in class. I mean, even today, if you sort of look at some of it and go, I'm not so good. we'll sit down and go through that individually. But again, hopefully you remember this too. When you've got zeros and you want to find the polynomial, do we remember sum and product? Do you want me to do one? So we'll do one. You guys actually know this, but sometimes you doubt that you know it. But when you have roots like so, and I said, let's say those are the only roots that we've got, and it's a quadratic, then we know that we would go, huzzah! The quadratic has to have factors of x, excellent, x plus 3, x minus 2, right? And they were nice, neat, whatever. If I expanded it, and the question hasn't asked me to, but if I expanded it, yes, that would become x take 6. You could have also got it by using sum and product. Now, the sum of the roots, minus 3 plus 2, gives you minus 1, and the product of the roots gives you minus 6. And that's where hopefully you go, oh yeah, the product was the last term and stays the same. The sum of the roots is the middle term, but reverse the sign. Now that holds true for when the roots are yucky. So if we had, let's say, I, or let's go 2i, no. Let's change that. We'll go 2, and I'm going to say minus I root 7. So sometimes, and this is one of the little catches that some of the questions do as well. They say, this is the one root. Well, remember, you are allowed to assume if 2 take I root 7 is a root, then 2 plus I root 7 is also a root. I think Dan were chatting the other day, and one of the questions in here saying put it as a linear factor. I hate that. I would not go x minus 2 take I root 7, right? And then you do it, and x take 2 plus I root 7. And I have to do it like that so I don't mess up my negative bits. Like I cannot go straight to, I guess I could, but I choose not to. I guarantee you right now, I will never ask you to do that because I can't stand that. There are obviously questions in the textbook that do ask you to do it, but if you don't like it, come over to my side. I don't like it either. So, yuck! If I've got that, I would use sum and product, and the same thing like we did before, it's just yucky, and we go the sum, and we remember, oh yeah, it's not that bad, because what happens to the icky bits? Right, they cancel each other out, and we end up with 4. And even when you do the product, do you have to write all of that? No. Now, when we're warming up, whether it be in the textbook questions, whether it be in a test, if you've got a moment, maybe you finish the test you've done. How many of you, if you remember from last year, might have made a little bit of a furphy when you were timesing with your i's? Because you remember I squared is -1, so positive times a negative is a negative, but then I squared is a positive. You know, remember, your calculator does that for you. So you could type that in if you wanted to, or you could say x squared, that means it's take 4x plus 11, or you could pop that into your polynomials degree 2, solve and make sure that you get. But, you know, make sure that you're double checking things, that it makes it sensible, because you don't want to lose those minor errors, because what's going to happen is this is no longer the question. It's part of a bigger one. And yeah, you don't want to then carry on. It makes your life harder if you're carrying a mistake through. I'm nearly done. I had something to say. I'm fascinated nobody's said anything to me yet about some of these questions. I mean, what do you notice? Oh, I guess we dealt with it last year, like the Zs. Does it matter with the Zs? No, they're just saying Z for zeros. It sometimes implies that you've got imaginary. It's giving you the heads up. There's going to be some imaginary solutions. But if you write X instead of Z, no one's going to mind. All good. You right, Kel?
Yep, I'm just trying to find.
The textbook?
No, not the textbook. Trying to catch up to where you are. Because I was working on 2A.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm going to say you can just sort of go through in a minute. I'll shut up and you can do this, or you could do the next bit. That's fine. Okay, but I think 2A, 2B, 2C, it's a whole lot of revision. Yep. No, we haven't got to 2C. So I might come and see you for 2C. I'll give the rest of you a few moments. If you wanted to do your... If you want to do 4A, that's all we had to do was 4. So can you do long way expansion for 4A, C and E, the first 3, do long-winded expansion, and then we're about to do the synthetic. So can I just have a show of hands again? Okay, so 2C. Basically, it's left-hand side equals right-hand side. What's going on here? So the first question, quite obviously, I think you've got 2x squared and you've got a something ax squared here, and you can see very clearly when you expand, you're not going to get another x squared anywhere. So would everyone be happy that a would have to equal 2? Simples. Simples don't even sound the same. And then here, this is the coefficient of x. So therefore, would we then all agree that 2b take 6 would have to equal 4? And we can then carry on and solve. Therefore, b is 5. And last but not least, what does c have to be? 5. Does that make sense? We're just equating left-hand side with right-hand side. For the rest of that, yes, they might get a little bit yucky. What you might have to do is maybe expand and whatever. They're hardly ever written like that. We're going to do the expandy ones by looking at 2A. So question 1 was just getting you the gist of it's left, it's right. You've got 2 options when we've got this situation. You can expand fully. So you've just learned, hey Kel, you've just learned about multiplying and expanding using synthetic division or the normal one. So one of your options is to absolutely go 1A, 2, 1B, 2, and do your expansion and then go, I never do that for these. I sort of just do it by equating the bits and pieces, I guess the coefficients. So on the left-hand side, z to the 4 is not going to be useful to me at all because there's a 1 in front of it, and you can see here that z squared times z squared, bang, I get z to the 4th. So that's useless. Yeah? So I'm going to the next power, and I go z to the power of 3. Now on the left-hand side, there is no z cubed. So what is the coefficient? It doesn't exist on the left-hand side. It's a 0. On the right-hand side, here's where the colour comes in. I look to see how do I get a z cubed, and there's really only 2 ways. It's when I've got a z squared times another z. Would you agree? And z squared times bz, I end up with bz squared. So the coefficient is just b. Z cubed, sorry. Yeah? Now, where else can I get another z cubed somewhere? Right, so I can now get another one with this z squared times the other z there. And that becomes a z squared. So that becomes plus a. Now, if that was a nice question and it had said, okay, instead of a being there, it was an 8, well, huzzah, I can now solve for B, correct? And away I go. Unfortunately, it's not in this case. So what do you think I have to do? I have to go to the next one. So I have to now go to z squared. You know, I thought we were going until 1 o'clock. My bad. But I've still got a couple of minutes. Stop it. So on the left-hand side, what is the coefficient of z squared? 0. On the right-hand side, how do I get a z squared? There's not going to just be 2 ways. There's going to be 3, because I can get it by z squared times that constant. Would you agree? So that's 2z. So I get a 2. And you go, yeah, okay, well, that means I could also get it by this z squared times 2. Still agree? But I can also, what colour should I go? Yellow. I can also, how else? AZ times BZ. That's right. That gives me A, B, Z squared. So this now becomes plus AB. So out of all of that, I've got 2 things. I've got, this gives me 0 equals AB plus 4. And I've got B plus A equals 0. How am I going to solve that? 2 unknowns, but 2 bits of information. I'm going to substitute. I'm going to say B equals minus A. I'm going to substitute it in. Now, people, I misjudged the time today. What I would like you to do for homework, make sure you're happy with 2A, 2B. I will make a little bit of a video about the equating coefficients. Probably at the end of today, pop it up, and hopefully question 1 and question 2 of 2C, or as much as you can do. Thank you, goodbye.